Hello, baby. Well, welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus. Wanted to spice it up a little bit on this Friday Eve. Good.
That was it?
If you want to continue to play it.
Justin was all rocking out.
He's liking that a little bit. All right.
Yeah, and then we just kind of faded into the background. I had to make sure my Spotify didn't open up because I was like, what the heck? I'm looking around. I'm like, all right, I hope Spotify is not on the computer by accident.
I want to welcome everybody, 106 in the afternoon. I'm Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki, along with meteorologist Justin Storm and our wonderful, talented Ag Director, Bridgette Readel. Bridgette, we did not get to wish it to you because you were gone the other day.
I was.
But happy 40th.
You know what? I am the youngest 51-year-old you know,
Yes.
so I'm willing to take it.
So I hope
It's fine.
now you are
Happy
extending
belated.
this into the weekend, right? It's birthday weekend all the way through.
It's not quite like it was in college where it was birthday week and there were a lot of events.
Yes, I'm sure there was.
This is very different. Also, cell phones now exist, so let's ignore all of those
right?
things. Yeah.
Yeah, the mornings in between birthday week are a little rougher now than they used to be.
That's exactly right. And I have to set a good example for our show mascot here, Cooper, the Highlander. He joined us today. So today is going to be a great day all about cattle. Thursdays are usually my headlines really refer to livestock in all sorts of areas. Today will be no different. So
Awesome.
Got lots of things to talk about.
And our guest today will kind of intertwine with that as well.
He really will. And I can share that preface what we're going to be talking about today. And our guest, when we start the 120 segment today, will be Dr. Fred Gingrich, and he is a veterinarian. He is also the executive director of the American Association of Bovine Practitioners. I didn't even know that association existed, except for the fact that I read a recent interview that Dr. Gingrich had done regarding bird flu in dairy animals. And I think there's an awful lot of questions out there from our listeners, because I get them and I read the articles, and I have more questions as well as to what exactly is going on. And you and I just discussed this, bird flu, what's the transmission possibility to other species?
Right.
And so I'm looking forward to visiting with our vet today, because I think that will help clear up a number of things for our listeners. And then we can continue to share that information as time goes on. It'll be good.
Gotcha.
It's a big week, though.
Yeah.
Remember, this is Ag Tech Week in North Dakota, particularly in Fargo. So I just came from Cultivate, which is yet another emerging prairie event that was going on today. If you are unfamiliar with what's going on this week, you have folks from all over the world. In fact, yesterday when I spoke out at Grand Farm, I was in front of a trade delegation from Japan. And good news, I did not cause an international incident. I managed to keep it clean, even when I talked about weed size and how size matters when we're controlling water hemp and kochia.
Yeah.
Dean, mute yourself. You're going to be fine over there. So
Thank God we have a dump button.
Right. But
Hey, it takes 10 seconds to recharge that, just so you know.
so it's a great week where folks are here. They want to talk about their startup ideas and opportunities. A lot of it's focused on row crop production. So think corn, soybean, cotton, even wheat as a grass crop. And what are technological innovations that we can be using in agriculture? Grand Farm also announced a new partnership with the University of Georgia, and there will be a Grand Farm South, if you will, and that will be located next to the Georgia State Fairgrounds, and they'll be working heavily with University of Georgia. A lot of that was done by proponent Sonny Purdue.
Cool.
Lots going on in ag, folks.
Good deal. Well, why don't we run down the forecast, because kind of an important weekend.
It needs to stop being hot out there. I got to go stand in the sun for 2 hours. Just tone her down, huh? I need some shade.
Yesterday was hot.
It
was a lot hotter than it was supposed to be. But
You got anything you want to say or add to that?
Yeah,
Yesterday, 97. Did they bump it up to 98, or was it 97?
well, I'm surprised they didn't bump it up to 98. Everybody else around us is 93.
This short, fat kid is not used to going from 73 to 98. That was horrific, by the way.
I
unwell.
played
Short. I mean,
It was
where
a
you
little
getting
cooler.
fat from? Short, yes.
The corn was loving it. I could literally hear like corn grow. We were hitting 3-4 leaf stage or collars on several plants.
Nice.
Good stuff.
That's good. And you'll be out in the field. No, you won't be out in the field today. You're going.
Yeah. Well, we will actually be close to a field. We're going to be doing one of our Here We Grow videos for our 20 acres of custom farming on a cornfield. But we're going to be working with the Red River Retention Authority. We're going to talk about drainage because you've sent some rain our way. Got to make sure that we don't flood in certain areas of the Red River Valley and that it's going the right places.
No doubt. Well, and we were close to it there. We were in minor flood stage there with all that rain we had in May. Now there's a little more rain back in the forecast. Not for today or tomorrow, though. Looking pretty good today. We've got a few fair weather cumulus clouds out there. It is breezy, though. We have temperatures in the lower 80s. Across much of the FM area. Only in the 70s, lower 70s in the Northern Valley and mid to upper 70s out in Lakes Country. We'll top out today generally in the lower 80s. Some of the warmer spots like Hector could touch 95 to 100. And that was yeah. They could easily touch the mid 80s though.
I am done. I'm leaving.
Yeah, okay.
You had that disclaimer in there.
Yeah, right. And then tonight, clear skies, lighter winds, a good sleeping weather tonight. Low 50s and light winds out of the west, northwest. And then tomorrow, we'll turn those winds to the south. A little breezy, but not too bad. Highs in the low to mid 80s tomorrow. Kind of like today, a few afternoon fair weather cumulus clouds popping up. And then a few showers and thunder showers pulling in from the west towards tomorrow. It looks like after sunset. Some of those could arrive a little earlier out to our west. And then scattered showers, thunder showers Friday night into Saturday. A lot of question marks on Saturday afternoon. I think the majority of the area is going to be dry Saturday afternoon unless Lakes Country southward. Those spots might be a little more wet on Saturday. Highs in the low 80s. And then it looks much nicer now on Father's Day. Partly cloudy skies should be dry with highs in the mid 80s on Sunday. Father's Day looks pretty darn nice. So if you have any grilling plans with Dad or maybe going out and hitting the links with them, weather should cooperate. It does turn pretty wet, though, next week.
Put a comma in the right place. That shouldn't say grilling Dad. Grilling plans with Dad.
Yeah, not grilling Dad.
Let's be careful.
I don't think you want to grill Dad. No.
Well,
what did you do in 1974?
Yeah, right.
64.
It was a prank.
God, don't you get it? It was a joke, man.
You want to touch on some ag topics before?
I do, but I also want to give a reminder that tomorrow is Flag Day.
It is.
Here at the studio. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be a number of events because of our sister station, The Flag. We want to celebrate Flag Day and all the freedoms that come with the fact that we live under the red, white, and blue. And those events are taking place from 11 to 2 out here in the parking lot. You guys will be here, right?
Yep.
Okie doke. Mm-hmm. What's all going on, Dean?
Indeed.
Stop on and say hi. There's bounce houses, food trucks, our veterans.
We got a bunch of giveaways
for Sweet Shots, Thunder Road, our veterans, our police, fire. They're going to eat for free. So that's fantastic.
It's a wonderful day.
Stuff for the kids. If you want to bring the kids along, Sandy's Donuts will be out here decorating having the kids decorate special donuts.
Wonderful.
So yeah, it'll be a fun day. The weather's going to cooperate.
Great.
Wear shorts. Obviously, it's always warmer on concrete. So our parking lot will be a little bit warmer than it actually is.
Actually, yesterday standing at Grand Farm on those black soils, holy Hannah Fritz, that was hot, kids. Goodness. Or as Grandma would say, that was goodness. Okay, so when you're talking about what you were mentioning, hot dogs and so forth for the kids, right? So we know that a lot of those are pork. Well, keep the bacon seeds cool. It is hot weather approaching, and that means by bacon seeds, pigs and piglets. See, once again, like many other animals, pigs don't sweat. So you got to make sure you do things to cool them off. Granted, a number of hogs are raised in confinement barns where you can have temperature control. But if you do not have those types of controls, there's some things you want to remember. First of all, and I'm hoping that if I get this wrong, I will be corrected by our guest, Dr. Gingrich, later as a veterinarian. But heat stress in hogs can lead to an intestinal permeability called leaky gut. That sounds horrible. Let's avoid that.
That doesn't sound pleasant.
No. So when a hog gets hot, the blood in its circulatory system will redistribute to the skin to cool the animal. And that reduces blood flow to the digestive tract. And then the proteins in the intestines can break down the lining and expose that hog to bacteria and pathogens. One of the things you can do similar to cattle is you can spritz them with water to keep them cool. I did have a gentleman who farms in the area and also shows hogs. He said, well, like when they go to the state fair in Minnesota to exhibit, they will sprinkle their hogs with vinegar because vinegar won't dry out the skin, but it will help cool the animal. when I mentioned that on our morning show earlier, James thought that was just like a marinade in preparation for his pork chops. I said he was being a little preeminent on his marinade.
I've got a
We'll
question.
spritz them with balsamic.
I've got a question for you then.
Okay.
If pigs don't sweat,
Right.
then where did the term I'm sweating like a pig?
It's all wrong. It's a misnomer. It's wrong. Pigs don't sweat. And cows don't sweat. Dogs don't sweat. They pant.
They pant.
So, realistically, somebody got that wrong. And then the rest of us were dumb enough to follow along and keep saying it. So stop that.
Okay.
Okay.
No more sweating like a pig.
No more sweating like a pig.
All right.
Which is
Very, very
unfortunate
interesting.
because Nike built a whole empire on shirts that help you not sweat like a pig. So I guess we've just proven that all wrong now. Goodness. All right. For those who want to join in our conversation today, especially as we get to talking about bird flu and its effect in dairy and potentially with beef. That's a question I have, is what could happen with our beef herds. You can join us on the Red Wing Shoe line, 701-293-9000. We'd love to have you join us. For those of you who are watching on Acres TV, Facebook, and YouTube, you can send emails to us, weather or ag@flagfamily.com. We'll answer them. We always do. Sometimes we're slower than others. And I just mean we're generally kind of slow. So we will get to those things. Oh, and I mentioned I'm going out to the field with Red River Retention Authority today as one of our partners for our Here We Grow project. They are hosting a partner summit on July 31st in Grand Forks. Former Minnesota Representative Colin Peterson will be there. If you have the opportunity to attend, please do. We'll be sharing more details about that conference as it's forthcoming. And for those who are still spraying crop, which is a lot of you, by the way, let me know if you're mixing a sprayer load. I need some video of people mixing up their sprayers. So call me. I'll stop by with a camera. And additionally, we have a sponsor, which is Gowan Company with Affiance Fungicide. And they are going to be providing fungicide for our corn crop. Keep the disease out because we had a lot of early season water that could have led to more problems. So we're going to be careful with that. Whew. All that's done.
Okay, so I found
That was a lot.
I googled sweating like a pig.
Oh, you did? Are there pictures?
Yeah, what did you find?
It comes from pig iron. Was not cool enough to move without burning anything it touched until it reached a point at which water vapor condensed on its surface, producing pieces resembling sow or piglets.
Okay.
Thus sweating
Like a pig.
like a pig.
But it has nothing to do with the actual pig.
It has nothing to do with it.
Okay. Well,
See, we learned something new today, kids.
we always do.
All right.
We need it. What we need is a sounder with a school bell. Okay. Stay tuned. We will be right back to get in there with our guest. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus. Thank you for joining us, and especially a thank you to our guest joining us today. And that would be veterinarian Dr. Fred Gingrich. He is the executive director of the American Association of Bovine Practitioners. I'm so glad I stumbled across that because I know about vets. I had no idea there was a Bovine Practitioners Association. So this is pretty cool. Dr. Gingrich, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Where are you calling from? Where are you? Where is your office is located?
Our headquarters is located in Ashland, Ohio, which is about an hour north of Columbus.
Right. Good to know. It's nice to have just a point of reference for folks. In case I forgot to tell you, we're in Fargo, North Dakota. So sometimes I realize I forget to tell guests that.
Yeah.
Whoops, my bad. Okay, so the reason I reached out to you is I have had a number of questions, and plus I've read quite a few articles talking about bird flu, especially in dairy. Can you give us a little bit of a background? What's going on with bird flu in dairy? And most folks say, why would a dairy cow get bird flu? Can we start there with just the background?
Yeah, sure. So, the current outbreak, at least in the poultry industry, has been going on in the U.S. for about 2 years. This is a global disease. It's affected a lot of wild birds, as well as there's been about 200 cases in mammals globally. And in sometime in the last part of 2023, the virus jumped into cows. It's assumed that was from a migratory waterfowl or other type of wild bird, and it started to infect cows. And since that time, it has spread from dairy to dairy throughout the U.S. And it was a single jump from birds, and it's now being transmitted cow to cow. And currently, as of today, there are 12 states that have affected dairy farms, and that is on 94 premises.
Okay. It's not like cows necessarily, can tell you what their symptomologies are and they don't feel well. So what is a dairy farmer looking for in his herd for symptomology?
Yeah, so dairy producers, the signs are pretty specific, and it's important to note that they're different than they are in birds. In birds, it's a highly fatal disease. It's called highly pathogenic avian influenza in birds. And basically that's because of a laboratory diagnosis. When they inject it into egg yolks, it kills them. And so in cattle, it doesn't cause death for the most part. We can have some mortalities from secondary infections. But the hallmark signs are that animals quit ruminating. The dairy cows quit ruminating. So sometimes some of the technologies we use on dairy farms with computers, it'll flag the computer that a certain percentage of cows have quit ruminating. They quit eating. They drop in dry matter intake, and then they quit milking. The milk will turn a thick yellowish type color. So the hallmark signs in cattle are quit eating, quit milking. And it affects about 10 to 20% of the cows in the herd, versus bird flu. In birds, it pretty much impacts all of them and causes fatalities in all of them. So it's a little bit different. We're thankful it doesn't cause those mortalities, but it's a significant impact on these farms when they have that number of sick animals in a very short amount of time and losing about 20% of their milk production on a herd basis, which is a big number for those farms.
And Fred, is there anything, kind of a double question here, is there any worry for the general public that this gets passed down through our milk or anything like that? And do the farmers, are they having to put the livestock down, or is there something they give to the cows or to overcome this?
So I'll answer the second part first. Certainly, if an animal gets a secondary infection, severe pneumonia, mastitis, something like that, where they would have a low chance of recovery and were suffering, then they would be humanely euthanized. But in general, it's supportive care. So, it's I hate to use the word flu and like it is in people, but when you're sick and you got the flu, you take nonsteroidal anti-inflammatories. So we have those drugs in cattle that are like aspirin or Tylenol. Banamine would be one that listeners might be familiar with, or flunixin. And then antibiotics, if indicated, if they have secondary pneumonia or mastitis. And then fluids. These animals are dehydrated. Some have a fever. And so that supportive care is what's done. But the vast majority of animals recover. Usually moves through the herd. It comes on hot and heavy. They get most of their cases within, 3 to 7 days, and then it kind of dissipates over the next, 10 to 20 days. So it comes in fast, goes away relatively quickly, but is overwhelming. As far as the human health concerns, absolutely we're concerned about that. But I think the number one thing for the consuming public to know is that pasteurization effectively destroys this virus. You can detect DNA fragments in milk, but it's not live virus. It's been destroyed by pasteurization. Pasteurization's been effective to make our milk safe for over 100 years. And the FDA has conducted nearly 300 pasteurization studies to determine that a variety of dairy products that are on the shelf are safe, don't have live virus, and pasteurization kills it. So raw milk is not safe to consume. It doesn't matter if we're talking about flu or any other pathogen that we find in raw milk, but certainly the milk that you pick up in the store and the cheese and the cottage cheese and sour cream and butter and ice cream, that's all really good to eat still.
Thank goodness.
I wasn't giving up butter.
Yes.
Right.
This isn't the first year that we've been dealing with bird flu. As you mentioned when we started this, we're kind of on the second year of this wave of bird flu. But, it's been going on for years before then. It's never gone away. It just kind of peaks and valleys. In years past, have we seen similar situations where cattle were getting infected by the bird flu, or is this kind of an anomaly thing? Or is this just something that normally happens, just we don't usually hear about it?
This is the first time that cattle have been diagnosed with this virus. It's never been found in cattle. Like I said, it's been found in about 200 other mammalian species, but first time in cattle. There was a report of some goats that were infected in Minnesota in March. But this is the first time it's been diagnosed in cattle. And we didn't know what it was when it started. There was dairies in Texas that had this really strange disease, and it was moving from dairy to dairy in the Texas Panhandle. And, we got together with a bunch of AAVP members, formed a working group, and thankfully the diagnostic labs working with the private veterinarians were able to determine the cause, which is avian influenza.
See, so if this is the first time that it's being caught in cattle and dairy farms and whatnot, is there any concern of this virus either being able to transmit or mutate in a way to where it's becoming more susceptible for humans to contract this virus? Is there any concern there in that regard? Well, yes, there's always a concern because that's what this virus does. It changes, it mutates, it becomes more pathogenic, and that's basically what has happened right now. And that's a major concern. I think the general consuming public, they're an incredibly low risk. As long as you don't drink unpasteurized milk or eat unpasteurized dairy products, your risk is pretty much zero. The highest risk, of course, is going to be the farmers and caregivers that work on those farms that are around sick animals, that are harvesting the milk and working in the parlor, working in the hospital pens, things like that. So we do have to make sure that we're providing good protection for them. But yeah, the CDC, FDA, that's why they're on high alert, because they want to make sure that they stay ahead of this virus so it doesn't mutate and cause any type of issues in the human population.
Oh, I appreciate those answers. And there are so many questions. Dean and I have been talking back and forth. I have a list that have come in from other folks. And so we will return with our guest today, who is, again, Dr. Fred Gingrich. He is a veterinarian, and he is the executive director of the American Association of Bovine Practitioners. We're going to keep asking the questions that you're sending. We've got so many more, such as a basic one. What's mastitis? We have to explain that to folks who are unaware. The effect that this may have on calves, whether the affected cow has not yet calved and she's carrying that unborn calf, or when you have a lactating dairy animal, if that can be passed on. So we're going to get to that and so much more right after this. Welcome back. Thank you for spending your afternoon with us. And yes, that is the Fisher-Price Barn Door. So appropriate for today because our guest is indeed a veterinarian. He is the executive director of the American Association of Bovine Practitioners, and that is Dr. Fred Gingrich. And we are just quizzing him left and right. I was going to say grilling, but that seemed wrong. We are talking about cows here, so I don't want to put that connotation out there. But we are asking all sorts of questions about bird flu because many of you have been sending us questions as well. And two that we had just before our break was, what's mastitis? Because folks don't always know what that is. And as former dairy farmer's daughter here, I knew and went, oh, we got to tell others. And then also, what is the effect on potential calves, whether unborn calves with a cow that's affected with bird flu or if the cow is lactating? So any information you can share with us there, doctor?
So mastitis is the number one disease in the dairy industry, just like bovine respiratory disease is the number one disease in the beef industry. And mastitis is quite simply just an infection of the udder, which turns the milk abnormal and dairy farmers need to treat those cows and discard the milk until that cow returns to normal. So that's what mastitis is. And second question, as far as the impact on calves and can the cow pass it to her calf? A lot of that is unknown right now as far as can a calf be infected before they're born. But what we do know is that this virus in cattle pretty much is only affecting dairy cattle and only affecting lactating dairy cattle. So cows have their first calf usually when they're about 2 years of age. Then they start milking, and it appears to only affect those animals. We don't have reports of sick calves, even testing calves. They're not positive, for the virus. So it appears it's kind of weird, and
Okay.
it's only affecting adult animals that are milking.
That's a great point that I don't think everybody knew before. And that's maybe where the question came from was, as you said, we're not seeing this in calves and very young critters yet at this point. Interesting.
That's interesting.
Correct.
Is there any hypothesis as to why that is?
Well, there's a ton of research going on right now across the globe. Really, it's fascinating how fast people are getting these studies done and out there. But in a nutshell, it appears that the receptors for influenza virus tend to have their highest concentration in the udder of cows, and so that's probably why it is only affecting animals that have an udder. And it's just like in people for influenza A, which is what this type of virus in people, we have a lot of influenza receptors in our eyelids, in our conjunctiva. And so the few human cases that have occurred that are suspected to come from cows in dairy farm workers, the most common symptom is pink eye. And that's because that's where they have those receptors in people. So they milk the cows, maybe rub their eye because it itches, and boom, then they have influenza-associated pink eye.
Oh man, this is worse than that SpongeBob commercial or cartoon where it says, "Oh, my eyes!" So don't touch your eyes, guys. I'm telling you that right now. Okay, so more questions that are coming in. Do you anticipate that there's a potential vaccine, or can we equate this to humans where the flu vaccine only is so good for so many strains?
So there's a lot of new vaccine platforms now and that can be utilized. And I know that there are companies that are working on a vaccine. I think that the vaccine, could have some potential effectiveness, although it's too early to tell. However, the biggest issue with vaccine is trade. We export about 18% of our dairy products and, a significant amount of beef, pork, and poultry especially. And so the reason the vaccine is not used in poultry is trade implications, that if it shut off some export markets, that would have significant economic implications for our farm economy. And so that's our biggest hurdle with vaccination right now is trade. We got to work through that. We got to work through development of vaccines both.
Okay, who else has questions, or can I just keep running through these rapid fire?
Well, I mean, Fred answered one of mine, and that was, is there any, does the public have any worry about this getting into the beef industry? But it sounds like it's just so far in dairy. So, yeah, he kind of knocked that off because I'm not giving up steak. Sorry. No.
Well, put down the tiger meat. If there was a concern, then don't eat raw hamburger.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I hate to be the voice of reason here. I mean, for God's sakes, my mom would be horrified that was the truth. So, all right, when you think about what's going on right now, we have 12 states that are affected. It's moved through a few herds. Would we consider this fast moving? Because when bird flu came on, it was like a wildfire. As soon as the wild birds started moving through on their migratory pattern, we had so many backyard and commercial flocks that were affected. I feel like the spread from dairy farm to dairy farm has been slower. Do we think, like bird flu, we've now become accustomed, as Justin said, to a 2-year epidemic in birds, that we're just going to say, okay, it's here to stay and we're good? Or is it going to plateau off because we've increased our measures of preventability with it?
Well, in some states it's moving kind of rapidly, especially when a certain area gets impacted. It tends to spread around. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we have so much traffic in and out of dairy farms, people, feed, trucks, services that dairy farms use. So, whether or not this is going to die down, I do not know. I know the USDA is hopeful that we can eradicate it in dairy cows. I'm hopeful for that too, but we just don't know right now. And the main problem is that we're not 100% sure how it's getting onto some of these farms that are not purchasing lactating dairy animals.
What's the procedure if somebody's operation or their cattle are coming down with bird flu? What's the procedure for those animals for the operation and to help prevent the possible spread to other nearby farms?
So like biosecurity, essentially?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing a dairy farmer should do is call their veterinarian. If they think that they have this, and I think probably most of them would do that immediately, they would call their veterinarian. It is a reportable disease. And so if testing is done, which I would encourage to confirm the diagnosis, then, the USDA and your local, state animal health veterinarian will, put on whatever regulatory restrictions they have on those farms at that time. Basic biosecurity for this is what we just call enhanced biosecurity that we try to implement on farms every day. And that's, no non-essential visitors to your farm. Do not purchase lactating dairy cows until they have been screened for the disease. Those are probably two of the biggest things. And then certainly if you're in an area that's impacted, you got to wash trucks in and out, changing clothes, making sure that you're using good disinfectant protocols and things like that. So this virus is readily destroyed by heat and disinfectants and sunlight. That's why we have a certain flu season, right? And because it's cold and it's dark and and it's wet and all that stuff. So, if you just do the opposite of what happens in flu season, you're going to probably prevent a lot of the spread or do the best you can.
I don't know what happens when I'm not here because Dean and Justin are forever sick. So if you two are like licking the doorknobs, stop it. We don't do that. We don't let cows do that kind of stuff. You two knock it off.
We'll try and refrain.
Thank you.
We'll try and refrain.
Sorry, Justin. You had another question.
In terms of just bird flu, does it kind of work in a cichlid manner, I guess? Does it come in cycles where it peaks and then kind of valleys? Like the sun's activity with solar storms, it peaks roughly every 10 to 12 years, and then it goes into a dormant phase, kind of, if you want to call it that, and then it gets more active. Is there a similarity in the prevalence of bird flu when it comes and goes?
Well, as far as for cows, we don't know because, number one, we don't know what, how long lasting immunity is going to be in herds that have been affected. We don't know that. It's certainly spreading right now to many dairies, with almost 100 dairies affected right now. In the poultry industry, it does tend to be a bit more seasonal, following migrations that occur in the spring. But we're hoping it dies down both in poultry as it historically does, and then also in cattle.
I see. So it's pretty sporadic. There aren't really any early indications like, oh, well, we're probably going to start going back on the upswing of bird flu and poultry again because we're heading into one of those, just upward ticks in the general trend.
Well, certainly in poultry, migratory birds are a major risk for them. And so when you have that bird migration going on, that is when you can see some of that spread. Again, since this is brand new in cattle, we really don't have any idea how it's going to behave nationally or even internationally. Is this going to move north into Canada?
Good point.
Yeah, we don't know some of that stuff. Cattle move every day all over the place. And although we have a lot of, health precautions in place, that's a significant challenge, just the way our industry is built.
So one other question there that I would have is species. Can we see other affected species like horses? That was a listener question. Often, and this is just my own opinion, but often you don't see horses necessarily on a dairy farm, unlike where maybe you have beef animals. So I think just the contact would be a lot less. But what am I missing in that answer there, Fred?
Yeah, so we do have horses on some farms.
Some
we
of
got
them,
pen
yep.
riders on feedlots and and even on cow-calf ranches. Maybe not as much on dairy farms unless you're into the Midwest where they use them for their vehicles. If you're talking about the plain sector community, so
Right.
but hasn't been diagnosed in horses yet, but over 200 mammalian species. I mean, sea lions, whales, dolphins. It's infected a lot of species. This virus does have the propensity of changing and then infecting a new mammal, and I anticipate that's probably going to continue because viruses are really good at surviving.
All right. And we've got a caller, Al. He's on line one. Al, what's your question for Fred today?
It probably was asked already, answered, but I'm over here in Wisconsin now, so I know like in fall we always get flu vaccine and different strains of that come out. So is there such a thing as a flu vaccine for the bird flu?
So there have been proposals for vaccination. However, as I said previously, the trade implications of that, and of course, we need the efficacy studies to see if it is effective in cattle. But right now, the number one reason that vaccination is not used in the U.S. is due to the implications of countries refusing our poultry, milk, beef, pork products when we utilize those vaccines in our industries. So it's really a trade barrier right now.
Okay, cool. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Al.
So I just want to say a huge thank you to Dr. Gingrich for joining us. We have knocked off a pile of questions. I've had them. We've had callers and emailers. And so thank you for taking the time to join us. We don't have a lot of dairy in North Dakota anymore. In fact, we're really a downstate in the dairy industry, but that doesn't mean we have a whole lot of beef animals and a whole lot of milk drinkers. So thank you for helping to answer all those. We appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
We may have to call you back. Just depends on how things spread. And again, everybody stop licking the doorknobs in this joint. Okay. We will be back.
They didn't make them flavored.
We will be back shortly. Stick with us for more headlines and a recap of our weather.
And welcome back to the program. Thanks for rejoining us. 153. What's that? And there you go.
That was for Steve.
For our listener, Steve?
Yeah, from yesterday.
Yeah, well, the look on Addison,
Howdy,
our
Steve.
sound engineer's face, he was like, what is happening in the booth today?
You guys are constantly pulling out like new sounds on me. I don't know what you're doing. And then
Just
you
leave
start
the
speaking
sounder
in
up. We'll take care of it in here.
the mic's not even on. And what's going on?
Hey, man, we need a heads up over here.
Yeah. Sorry,
Dean
Addison.
learned about YouTube on the computer.
It's a big day.
Hey, it is.
We still got some fun things coming up on the show. If you want to be a part of the conversation, you can give us a call on the Red Wing shoe line, 701-293-9000, or emails to the program. That's weather or egg at flagfamily.com. And, this was something that was pretty devastating last year. And for the most part, I think things have settled down in Texas. But there was a lot of wildfire action over there last year. And Bridgette, I know you have a little information on some of the true costs of those Texas wildfires. What do you got for us?
Wild enough. That was just at the end of February. It was this spring.
Oh, was that earlier?
It was just earlier this
spring.
year. Yep, wildfires
I
burned
thought it
1.2 million acres down in Texas. It's the largest wildfire in Texas history. Texas A&M Extension economists have projected that has caused $123 million in losses. That's a preliminary estimation, and that's only as good as the information that they receive. So if you have folks who still haven't really given a good tabulation of their costs, that number will likely go up. So what we saw was 12,000 head of cattle died. Grazing lands were lost because all the grass was burned off, and it's the winter, so you have a lot of deadfall, so to speak, or just dead plant material.
Flammable
that's tinder.
material.
Yeah, absolutely flammable material. Also, that would have to include stocks of hay, feed, barns, fences, corrals, wells, windmills, and so much more. Well pumps, and so that's just a start at the $123 million, but definitely an impact. I was asked earlier on an earlier show this morning if that has driven up the cost of beef in any way. 12,000 heads not going to drive up our cost of beef, but our beef prices are not going to come down. We are at the height of summer and grilling season, and so we're going to continue to see beef prices stay elevated. And it's also a favored protein in the U.S., even over chicken and pork.
And we've had a lot of heat.
We have.
For this early in the season, there's been some record heat down in the desert Southwest, through Texas, through Florida. And this next topic, I didn't know there was such thing as bacon seeds, but we're not supposed to let our bacon seeds overheat? Is this something new?
Yeah, I was talking about that earlier. That was my tease, is that tiny pigs are bacon seeds. Yes, when I talked about keeping pigs cool and using a little vinegar on them like a marinade. But
All
yes,
right.
that is the going joke
I
on
missed
social
that.
media, that hogs are bacon, little tiny piglets are bacon seeds.
I like bacon seeds.
I'm okay.
Plant them in your garden, believe it or not.
You know what? They will leave the fertilizer behind if treated right.
Indeed.
Yes, they
would.
will.
For those who might have an interest, and I know this is due tomorrow, but some of you have a little political aspiration in you, the International Trade Administration within the Department of Commerce federally is looking for nominations for a Renewable Energy and Energy Efficient Advisory Committee. If you would like to talk about energy in so many different ways, representing things like liquid biofuels, pellets, non-fossil fuel, carbon consumption, so much more, this committee will hold up to 13 members, and I can give you a link for it if you email me, ag@flagfamily.com. Nominations, again, are going to be due tomorrow, but you'd be welcome to participate. I know that's a little short notice, but it's been a busy week. We haven't always gotten that one in earlier like we might have wanted.
Oh, man, and it's windy out there. We've got winds gusting pretty close to 40 right now. So high-profile vehicles and those north-south roads could be a little tough with those west winds whipping across. So keep that in mind if you're out and about this afternoon. The rest of the forecast looking pretty good. We're looking at temperatures and topping out in the Northern Valley in the 70s today, and then low to mid 80s in the Southern Valley with windy conditions. And then tomorrow we're looking at Temperatures similar to today, low to mid 80s, a sunny start, clouds in the afternoon. Weekend, it looks a little iffy on Saturday. A few scattered showers, mainly early, low 80s. And then pick day of the weekend, probably Father's Day, mid 80s, partly cloudy skies, albeit a bit breezy out of the south. So for Justin, myself, and for Bridgette, I want to thank everybody for joining us on Weather and Ag in Focus. Don't go anywhere. Number one show in the afternoon, the Jay Thomas Show. That's coming up next.